Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, in my opinion, one of the most brilliant and most effective members of the U.S. House of Representatives, on the line with us, so ably representing the 9th District of Illinois. Congresswoman Schakowsky, it's great to have you back with us.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. I'll try and be brilliant.
It's genuinely how I have so much respect for you and the great work that you're doing. You recently either wrote a piece or talked about expanding and protecting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and that kind of fits into the warp and woof of our social safety net, which now has been enhanced to include Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Your thoughts on all these topics and also what happened over at the Supreme Court this morning?
I was in front of the Supreme Court talking to some of the people who would actually lose their insurance, and we're talking about over 8 million people who would actually be uninsured as a result, about 9 million people who would see their rates go up maybe exorbitantly and they couldn't afford it. But the thing is, a decision to end the subsidies for people under a federal exchange would be a totally political decision, probably the most political decision ever by the Supreme Court of the United States. There is no justification. Every shred of evidence shows that the Congress I helped write the bill, intended every eligible consumer to get tax credits no matter what state they live in. The CBO followed suit in estimating what the cost would be, figuring every one of those subsidy people, federal or state exchange. When the court decided that the law was constitutional, this never came up. This is a lawsuit funded by a right-wing organization, the Competitive Enterprise Institute, and it's, in my view, a frivolous lawsuit. I'm really disappointed that the court even took it. I
am too. Why and how they granted cert in the first place, other than, it only takes 4 justices to grant cert to accept a case, and there are 4 very reliable, very partisan right-wing cranks on this court. My phrase, not yours. And it's shocking. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how this all shakes out, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are not talking about contingencies and Plan B because it's just impossible to contemplate just based on the law itself that they would do it. It would be just totally outrageous. You mentioned Medicare, Social Security. We have. First of all, of course, Social Security is an insurance policy for all Americans. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, we have a retirement crisis in the United States of America right now, and these programs are so essential for older Americans. People cannot afford to retire, Tom. Yeah. I mean, they have no savings. Social Security is so modest; it's about an average of $1,300 a month for people, not really livable. And so it's not only about protecting Social Security and Medicare, and let's remember that Medicare premiums come right out of your Social Security check. So if we mess with Medicare and how much out-of-pocket costs there are, this really eats into Social Security. We've got to do better.
Yeah.
This is, Tom, the one fact that I like to tell people, this is the richest country in the world, at the richest time in the history of the world. If the average gross domestic product would suggest that Americans are all doing well, but as you well know and as you talk about, all of the wealth has gone to the very top, and ordinary people, it's hard for them to imagine that we're so rich as we are.
Yeah, and I think, frankly, that's one of the things that makes them vulnerable to right-wing propaganda about how, we can't afford to spend money, we're broke, it's... is it possible, in your opinion, Congresswoman Schakowsky, that if John Roberts and Kennedy, who seem to be kind of the swing votes on this thing before the Supreme Court, if they take down Obamacare, essentially, would the backstop to that, and should the Democratic Party be talking about this right now be John Conyers' H.R. 676 that basically just says, okay, cool, anybody in the country who wants can sign up for Medicare regardless of their age.
Well, we certainly could attack this on a policy/political way and talk about single payer. Mm-hmm. The irony is that so many more states have a federal plan as it is. That's why those states, would be in trouble if the decision were made. And by the way, those are mostly red states because they wouldn't form their own exchange. And I think it does bring us closer to the idea, let's go all the way if we're doing federal anyway. But mainly what I think would happen over the short term, because I've seen the polling, the people who get subsidies love it. Right. Most Americans think it is a good idea, and they don't want to have this taken away from them. It's about 67%. It's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's Tea Party people. Whoever gets them loves them, and people think it's a good idea to help. I think it would affect the 2016 elections, which really aren't that far away. Mm-hmm. I was listening to Hillary Clinton at Emily's List last night doing a very populist, progressive message. It was very encouraging.
I think she's getting pushed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie is just, unambiguous about how that's his goal, is to, one of his goals, to kind of push the conversation into these populist areas.
I think this is a populist moment in our history right now. Yeah. People are really starting to get it, that the system, as Elizabeth Warren says, has been rigged. Yep. For the wealthy. But this thing now, and there's lots of people, it's great, in front of the Supreme Court, and there's a radio row, so people are broadcasting this all over the country, how progressive talk radio is doing that. But it would just be shocking. There's about 6 words out of this multi-thousand-page law. Mm-hmm. That refers to the issue of the subsidies,
right? An exchange created by the state.
The law just it just was not intended. It's incredible. The section of the law that's called "Failure to Establish an Exchange" contains no mention that tax credits would not be available in states that chose not to set up a marketplace.
Right. Yeah, this is one of those. Bush v. Gore. I mean, it's specious. Yeah. They don't have the authority. They shouldn't be doing it. It's unconstitutional, but they do it anyway.
That was a pretty consequential decision, no question about it. But this one would be too. And obviously, if it would push us closer to a real national health care, Medicare for all kind of plan, that would be good. But in any case, I think it is a political miscalculation on the part of the Republicans, right, to support this in the first place.
Yeah, they might end up like the dog that finally caught the car.
That's right, the dog that caught the car.
Right, so what do we do now? Oh, I don't know. Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, the website schakowsky.house.gov, and representing Illinois' 9th District. Congresswoman, thank you so much for dropping by today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. You do great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Back at you. Great talking to you.